So, Paolo, welcome. It's great to see you, and thank you for spending some time with me today. I know Oversonic are doing some really exciting things in the field of robotics. Maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview of the work you have underway.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for inviting us here. Oversonic has been developing humanoids since 2020. We actually develop industrial machines shaped as humanoids, fully collaborative and safe. This is our key goal since 2020, and this enabled the company to reach some important results in terms of being operative already, both in the industrial and healthcare sector.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And when you mention humanoid, I mean, we hear a lot about robots today, robotics generally, but humanoids specifically. And there's a lot of excitement about what humanoids might present, what they can deliver. How much of that is hype, or are we at a point where you think this is real now? There's a real market opportunity for robots.
That's a great question, and it's still a great discussion. As you tell, I mean, we are surrounded by several projects in terms of humanoids, and we keep underlying, from an Oversonic point of view, that we develop industrial automation machines. The main difference is really, the purpose of these products, and the fact itself that we are talking about products which are robust, reliable, and safe. Several projects are still trying to define some kind of future vision with products which I would consider more prototypes as per today.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Paulo, as you mentioned that, you talk about being safe and functional. What markets are those that have the greatest propensity for humanoid-like deployments, like your robot?
And that's exactly the point. I mean, we are approaching, we have a total B2B approach, and we are mostly dedicated to industrial and healthcare application. And that's why we talk always about safety, because there's no doubt that you cannot just have, jumping, dancing. That's not the goal. And if we think about really supporting humans in jobs that are strenuous, are alienating, are dangerous, we do have to have the real effectiveness of industrial machines.
Sure. And on that point, Paul, I'm curious. Do the companies you're dealing with, your customers, do they then consider the ROI model and how they'll manage their workforce and the integration of a robot in that workforce? Curious what you're seeing and learning.
Totally. We are facing now with several requests. We are currently servicing two major sectors, which is automotive and semiconductors. And you can imagine, how tricky are manufacturing processes at that level. But on the other side, also how it's important for them to, take care of marginality. Usually the deployment of fleets into these segments with major company is based on POC, which ran for 6 months, with the adoption of the few early units just to validate, the internal use and application, and then the deployment of real, fleet of units, which are in the hundreds, even in thousands of units.
Wow, and then it really becomes a reality of deployment in the workforce or in the workplace, augmenting the workforce for real value and return.
It does, and I have to say that the most I may not be total, objective also with the other customers, but let's say that a way to approach this investment is really with the midterm, plan, and we see, customers adopting humanoids and at the same time hiring more humans to handle this introduction, which makes sense. I mean, we are in front of really a new technology, and it's not just a turn the key option. You need to help the introduction. Of course, we talk about humanoids because mainly the process doesn't need to change in terms of layout, in terms of process itself when we talk about manufacturing.
Right.
But there is an adoption process which takes time and also professionality.
Yeah, so back to my original question, it is very real then. What we're seeing today is real. In some ways, maybe an inflection point that is enabled by the introduction of robotics to the multiple industries you mentioned in manufacturing and healthcare as two first movers, but as it permeates beyond that, an inflection point for how industries will actually embrace automation.
As far as we are concerned, it's real 100%. I mean, we are delivering units into large company for difficult task. When it comes to healthcare, we are just in clinical trials. We haven't achieved yet the medical device class 2A certification, which enables the machine to act independently with patients. So we are just working on clinical trials. But the deployment for the industry is real. I have to say that today, probably when we see kind of a B2C approach, we are probably in front of projects which will require another 2, 3, 5 years before coming really real.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. And I think part of that journey that you were talking about, and I know Oversonic has spent a lot of time really understanding this, is frankly understanding and addressing the complexity. Because these implementations are complex. A robot, typically, particularly a humanoid, needs to integrate VLAs, VLMs, neural networks, motion control, management of the device. You mentioned functional safety, all of the real-time behaviors. How does Oversonic address that complex problem?
That's exactly the point. I mean, we had a goal in 2020, which was to deliver a real product. So certification was kind of a must-have, a milestone for the project. And based on that, basically, everything we adopt on the robot is certified. That's why our machine is moving on wheels and is not walking. When it comes to AI, neural network, algorithms, we basically have two layers. One which is more AI oriented, and therefore we can process a huge number of information. And the second layer which is model based and safety certified.
Right.
To make sure that the very last action, I would say, is basically deterministic. I mean, when we talk about certification, it means also that our robots, our machines, where they enter a manufacturing process, they are covered by insurance. So the level of, let's say, unsuccess is 0.0.
Right.
Okay, we need to really perform at a very high level.
Yes.
To make sure we can enter environments which are, full of people, full of important materials, machines. So a lot of humanoids we see in the market are still far from this kind of application.
And so in addressing that challenge, which I know it's how you have really considered the software environment, the model implementation, you've talked about the separation of domains. Is there a value path forward for greater levels of consolidation, greater levels of integration to maximize power, performance, footprint?
That's a huge need. That's a huge need. I mean, just to tell you the Oversonic story, I think we started with about 15% of the cognitivity of the machine on board, which was just the safety. Today we are up to 65, 70%. Of course, having powerful boards, powerful tools to be able to process a huge number of data, integrate CPU, GPU, NPU, can really enable to have everything on edge, being more performing, real-time effectiveness, and as well also, we need to take care of consume, because we have machines running on 8 hours working capability alongside humans, and so everything is important. So development of and evolution of these technologies is extremely important.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And the work we've done together, particularly with the Core Ultra product line, which, as you mentioned, has CPU, integrated GPU, and NPU very tailored to provide for the full complex of AI support, real-time control, functionally safe, environmentally appropriate from a temperature ranging perspective, and optimizing for the performance parameters that are increasingly going to be demanded in these humanoid robots you're building.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true, and that's why we were extremely happy to be here, to be partnered with Intel, and to have finally introduced Core Ultralight Series 3 as the key processor of our new platform for cognitive humanoids robots.
Yeah, it's great. We're very excited. Before we leave, Paolo, I'd be curious what learnings you have from the implementations with the initial customers that might be valuable for those who are watching, to say, what have you learned through the deployment or implementations that would be great insights?
Well, there's really a bit of everything, from a lot of prejudice before entering. I mean, first of all, I have to say that adoption needs to really come from top level all the way to everyone inside the factory.
Right.
it's not like introducing another industrial automation machine. Of course, it's kind of special. I'd say that there's been always a bit of resistance at the very beginning, but once the machine is performing what they have to perform, so just their task, is just welcome as anything else that can help people to do a better job. So that's something that I mean, we haven't faced any problem in terms of unions or things like that. The machine is working as a machine. On the healthcare, on the other side, it's an extremely useful machine, and the clinical trials we perform show also, besides being effective in terms of performance of the machine and achieving the goals, it has been extremely interesting to see how the acceptance of patients has been, which in most cases have been even better than working with humans, just because the machine is taking away any kind of judgment factor, any kind of shame from the patients.
Wow, that's fascinating insight, actually. Well, Paolo, really appreciate you spending some time sharing your insights and the work we're doing together and the big successes you're having with your products.
Thank you very much. Again, thanks a lot.